Sylvain Voyer is going to be turning 70, and he's been painting all of his life. This is an opportunity to see all the periods of his work, all the phases that he's gone through. This exhibition is a kind of a slice of art history.
Sylvain's quintessential Edmonton area regionalist. That's where he's from. It's what he paints.
Yeah.
It's in him. It's in his chromosomes, and he paints it, and he paints it exquisitely.
I think of a pixie. I kind of think of maybe even like a butterfly, because he has such a light way about him, and such a lightness, a humor, a sense of life that's just really quite enchanting. And you see it in the whimsy that's lying in a lot of his work. I mean, there's an enormous sense of humor.
Retrospectives are always fascinating. I know there are a lot of people, probably collectors even, who only know the last 20 or 30 years of his work, and who will be quite stunned when they look at where it's coming from, may re-examine that work in a new way.
The retrospective was fantastic. My only frustration is that, of course, there were so many old friends and connections there that they all wanted to talk and visit, and I wanted to look at the paintings. It told such a story of a person who came from a place that was pretty remote and set out to see the world. And then that he comes home and it becomes sort of a love story with where he came from.
I have the good fortune to have Marcus working on the show, and I'm kind of standing as an outsider watching the process. It's a huge process. Sylvain has work stored in 2 different locations that aren't in Edmonton, so it involved Marcus going up to northern Alberta and down south to Claire's home. Looking through, you know, an artist over 50 years, you can imagine how many finished works, but also sketches and ideas and works in progress.
Okay, what am I going to do next? Well, let's talk about what you would like to see. I've got all this work here that I want to go through, and like you said, maybe put it in piles. But maybe what we should do is organize where we're going to put stuff.
Like this, I've never seen before. Okay. I don't think.
Pick 3 or 4 because that's what will work as a grouping, right?
Like this is great. This is great. These 2 are good. These 2 are good. Yeah.
Okay, why don't we put those aside like that?
Them all.
Let's see. I think that's it. That one I would leave out. This one I think we have some similar ones. So why don't we?
But wait.
This one.
Wait. Give me one of these back here. You don't like this one, eh? Why not? Why not?
Because it was a frustrating painting. I had to really struggle with it. So for me it's a little too spiritual.
I like this painting, Sylvain. Now, geez. You can't see this painting anymore. You struggled too hard on this one, but this is a really
well.
Nice
put it in
painting.
that pile. Put it in the pile.
I want to.
Okay, put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me give you a.
This is my. Yeah. Okay.
This eventually was a collection. I was doing paintings for maybe 5-10 years, and then
like 5x7s.
Yeah, and then I put it together as an Edmonton series. My father had oil trucks when the Leduc number 1 came in, 48 I think. They didn't have a pipeline. He had a trucking company. As a kid, we used to sometimes go with him and visit the place. So. These little paintings, they were my bread and butter for a good period, you know, where they were very popular. A lot of these paintings have some connection with my past and family history. This is the neighborhood where I spent my life as a child. I was born in the Misericordia Hospital, and our family lived on the north side of the Silverwood Dairy. The dairy was really quite an icon for Edmonton. It had a large two-story white gleaming milk bottle set on the top. It was a beautiful sculpture. The milk bottle painting I did here when I came to paint it in the 70s, I came riding up on my bike, took my paints out, and the wrecking crew were busy slamming down the dairy. The milk bottle still was on the top, so I did a painting of it. The milk bottle was important to the Edmonton landscape, and people wanted to know where it went, but it went into some scrapyard, which happens to a lot of artwork.
And I understand it's pretty nice outside, too. Hi, Catherine. It's Doug Udell at the Douglas Udell Gallery. I'm just calling. You've left your name and number with us to call about Sylvain Voyer. He's the eyes of our Edmonton. Most artists that we remember historically are artists who allowed us to see things in our normal everyday life that because of our normal everyday life we may not get to see that well or really pay attention to. And he allows us to stop and contemplate it, where in the normal goings of life we drive through it, we reflect on it very little, we maybe see it by quick flashes of showing our eyes one way or the other, and Sylvain really has given us an identity, a cultural identity. All the great artists of history have been able to do that.
Well, I'm here on the corner 114th Street and Jasper Avenue. This is, to me, a very special place. This is where my grandfather had his general store in the 20s, general merchandise. Grandfather came to Edmonton in 1893. The building was demolished in the 80s. When I painted it in the 70s, it was the original structure. It had a big billboard across the top with an airplane flying across. Really, this is where the old French Quarter is, too, all the way back into here. The school, Grandin School, where I went to the church. The cathedral is the next block over.
He's very interested in the place that he lives in, the place that he grew up in, the place that he knows. I think of his beautiful, beautiful paintings of different landmarks in downtown Edmonton. Aesthetically, they're interesting to look at. Sylvain has a real eye for detail, and he's not afraid of detail. I remember when I was younger looking at art, things that were too highly detailed or too illustrative were kind of considered pretty conservative and old-fashioned. Sylvain has been at those for a long, long time, and I don't think he cared about any of that sort of stuff.
I met Sylvain. We went to art college together. We became very good friends nearly right off. Sylvain was kind of a nice, laid-back guy. He always knew he wanted to be an artist, where I didn't. And so, not that he taught me anything. I would never let him say that, even though he tells my grandchildren that he taught me everything that I know. And
do they believe him?
Of course they don't, because I taught him. I told them the same thing, of course, yeah. We had so much in common because back then in Edmonton, there was not an awful lot happening in the art community. Basically, we were the artists in Edmonton. When we went to art college, Sylvain was in a year, 2 years behind me, and you had good instructors, but if you if you had talent, you didn't need much instruction. And Sylvain certainly had the talent. I thought I had the talent. We had that definitely in common. And we taught each other an awful lot, especially dealing with the landscape, which we visited as much as we could. We would sell our paintings for $25 a piece, and they were small 5x7 acrylics, and we would go out in an afternoon and do maybe a half a dozen or so. And I don't know even if I recall if they were that good, but we were just constantly learning. And we got to a point where I would say to Sylvain, let me finish that painting you've just started. I think I could do it better than you, you know. But at times, I think we could probably exchange paintings. We got very good at what we were doing. We spent so much time together in criticizing each other's work. And it's funny, we wouldn't take criticism from many other people, but it was fine. Our little mutual admiration society, you know, didn't extend out to others.
Well, beautiful to be here. This is a tree I painted last fall. While I was preparing for my retrospective, I came down and painted this large tree here, and it was just glorious. Over a 20-30 year period, this is where I found inspiration. This painting is probably maybe the biggest plein air painting I've done till now. The colors were gorgeous, the sky was gorgeous, so all the elements were there, and I was there, which is part of the secret is being in the right spot at the right time. This one is Central Park. When I was painting that, in the park, I hear something, and there's, you know, these things coming by me, and these kids were throwing rocks at me. So I get up to, you know, kind of check them out, and one of them hit me right there, and I started bleeding, and I had this bloody face.
Whoa,
and I had
really?
Yeah, little beggars. so who says that was one of my most.
So where's the blood on this?
Yeah, right.
The
Yeah.
blood here.
Yeah.
So then you knew your painting was finished.
Yeah.
Is that how you decided?
Yeah, it was finished then.
He took off for New York and spent several winters there, and then came back and was very much into color, into hard edge painting.
He was a very curious person who wanted really to, broaden his perspectives, and he did. He went to New York, and you can see the kind of universal themes in what he did there, and then the fact that he came back and brought back what he'd learned and had this kind of fresh look at where he came from. You could see how he experimented and probed and tried to see things from a different angle.
So, Marcus, I have about, I don't know how many art recycling pieces. This one, which doesn't have the frame, this is a kind of a neat one.
Yeah.
Botticelli.
Yeah.
Manet.
That's right.
New York.
Yeah.
Just with a few additions. Rats and garbage cans and
cats
plates and bars on the window, because that was my New York. And I'd cut out this. And it was interesting. It's a really simple idea, but it sometimes was very effective, because I could just put this in a window, and if I put it, for instance, here, you block out the light behind it. You've got, you've got your country picture. You don't have to worry about your environment. It's right there. And this is interesting, because I did one as a left, where I cut from the left side, and the other one I cut from the right side. But isn't that an amazing juxtaposition?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Little feet in there, hands, scale, everything.
Sylvain, I think this is really interesting. I knew from the start, but as I've gotten to know you and your work more and more, and with this just reinforces it. I think you were, you really had a very kind of a strong conceptualist point of view in your work, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Oh, look at this one. Isn't that a beautiful tondo?
Yes. This has got a perversity to it. First of all, I mean, you're cutting up a book, right? Yeah. So you've transgressed there already, and now you're going into the Uffizi, and you're stealing all the paintings, right? And where are they now, right? It's like, it's really, there's something bad about what you've done here.
But look at how beautiful that is. Now, how would some contemporary artists would like to just have done that as a painting.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And it's a composition that's come about by chance, right?
Yeah, chance.
There's no other way to get this, right? It's a fuck you attitude that you've got about this great art of the world and the museums. And but it's not slapdash, or it's very, very precise. It's a precise fuck you.
Sylvain was interested in some of the Dada tradition, the more kind of counterculture. His art making at times has been very experimental and cutting edge. And then he's got that whole really interesting history as a kind of young art radical.
The hippie painting, 1967. That painting, somebody was asking me, what kind of ism it was, or what category it might fit into, and I couldn't think of anything besides. It's a kind of a psychedelic painting, right? And it really sort of brings you back to that time. And the way it's evolved over the years, I think that's one of the incredible things about that painting.
Sylvain can always see something that he just wants to make a little bit better, like the hippie painting, as we call it, with the couple. I mean, I've seen that painting change over the years, from the time it was born, probably. And he's always added, and then some little area in the painting, it becomes this incredible little detail scene onto its own. And then he'll add something down here and down here. I mean, that painting is maybe 20 years, 30 years in the works. It's extraordinary that he has the energy, and the desire to continually work on his paintings until, I mean, they just couldn't be much, I don't think they could be any better.
Knitting it together, things that, and just working over the plastic. I'm adding some more beads, necklaces. I think what it does is it adds an element of So, these are possibilities for changes. Part of what happens is that I have so much invested in this painting in terms of 42 years. to make a change, additions, or just not knowing how it's going to work, you get kind of a little weak in the knees, you might say.
Yeah, that's for sure.
These two figures I want to describe in a little more detail so you know what they are. I think I'm so familiar with the painting that I know that those are two angels, but I don't know whether any other viewer would know that, so I need a little more physical description of the two angels. What I did is I took some blue paint and just outlined the body in a few places and see if that would give a little more definition.